Abused dog was about to give up, but when this woman found him, incredible what happened next. The August heat bore down mercilessly as Rachel Weber received the urgent call at Hope Animal Sanctuary. The local police dispatcher's voice was tense. "We've got a situation on Cedar Grove Road. Large white dog, possibly aggressive. Animal control is tied up with another emergency." Rachel, who had spent 15 years rescuing animals, felt her heart quicken. "I'm on my way. Can you give me more details?" Neighbor called it in. Says the dog's been chained up for months. It's not good, Ms. Weber. Grabbing her emergency kit and signaling to her colleague Marcus, Rachel headed out in their rescue van. The rural Pennsylvania roads stretched before them, lined with cornfields swaying in the humid breeze. Cedar Grove Road was barely more than a dirt track, leading to a cluster of old farmhouses. As they approached the address, the stench hit them first, a sickening combination of decay and infection that made Rachel's stomach turn. "Over there," Marcus pointed, his voice tight, behind a decrepit trailer home, partially hidden by overgrown weeds, lay what appeared to be a dirty heap of rags. But as they drew closer, Rachel's breath caught in her throat. It wasn't rags at all. A once magnificent Samoyed dog lay motionless, his white fur now a matted yellowish-brown. Flies swarmed around deep wounds visible even from a distance. A heavy logging chain, crusted with rust and blood, bound him to a metal stake. "Oh, sweet Jesus," Marcus whispered. Rachel approached slowly, her heart pounding. Despite years of rescue work, some cases still had the power to shake her to her core. This was one of them. "Hey there, beautiful," she called softly. "We're here to help." The dog's head lifted slightly, a movement that must have caused immense pain, and Rachel saw something that would haunt her forever. Despite everything, his tail moved in a weak attempt to wag. "Marcus," she called, fighting to keep her voice steady. "Get the bolt cutters, and call Dr. Santos. Tell her we're coming in with an emergency." As Marcus returned to the van, a screen door slammed. A man emerged from the trailer, beer can in hand. "What you doing with my dog?" he slurred, stumbling down the steps. Rachel straightened up, positioning herself between the man and the suffering animal. "Sir, this dog needs immediate medical attention. By law, we have the right to remove any animal in critical condition." "That's my property," the man spat. "Cost me $300. He's a guard dog." Rachel felt fury rise in her throat but forced it down. Years of experience had taught her that in these situations, emotion rarely helped. "We'll give you $200 for him," she said evenly, though the idea of paying anything to this monster made her sick. The man's bloodshot eyes narrowed. $300, same as I paid. Done. Rachel pulled out her phone, quickly sending a payment through a cash app. "He's ours now." As Marcus approached with the bolt cutters, the dog, whom Rachel had already begun thinking of as a survivor, watched them with wary but hopeful eyes. Despite his horrific condition, there was no aggression, no growling. "Easy, sweet boy," Rachel murmured, kneeling beside him. "We're going to get you out of here." The chain, when they finally cut it, had been so deeply embedded in the dog's neck that they couldn't initially tell where metal ended and flesh began. Yet somehow he managed another weak tail wag. Getting him onto a stretcher proved challenging, not because he resisted, but because every touch clearly caused pain. Still, he remained gentle, even turning his head to lick Rachel's hand when she secured the final strap. As they lifted him into the van, Rachel noticed something that broke her heart anew. Beneath the matted fur and wounds, she could count every rib. How long had he gone without proper food? "What should we call him?" Marcus asked as they sped toward the emergency vet clinic. Rachel looked back at their passenger, who was watching her with eyes that somehow maintained their brightness despite all the darkness they'd seen. "Duke," she said softly, "because despite everything they did to him, he still has his nobility." In the back of the van, Duke's tail thumped weakly against the stretcher once, twice, as if saying, "Yes, that's who I am. That's who I've always been, underneath it all." Rachel wiped tears from her eyes as she called ahead to the clinic. This was just the beginning of what would surely be a long journey, but something told her this special soul was going to make it. Duke had survived this long not just because of his physical strength, but because of something far more powerful, his capacity to hope. Dr. Elena Santos was waiting at the clinic's emergency entrance when they arrived, her experienced eyes widening at the sight of Duke. 20 years of veterinary practice hadn't hardened her to cases like this. "Treatment room 1, she directed, already pulling on surgical gloves. "Sarah, prepare for wound debridement. Maria, start 4 fluids and draw blood for analysis." The next few hours became a careful dance of urgent care and gentle handling. Duke's temperature was dangerously high, 104, 5 degrees Fahrenheit. An infection had spread through multiple wound sites. Yet throughout the initial examination, he remained remarkably cooperative. "I don't understand," Maria murmured as she carefully inserted the 4-line. "After everything humans did to him, how can he still trust us?" Rachel, who hadn't left Duke's side, stroked his head gently. "Some souls are just extraordinary that way." The full extent of Duke's injuries became clear as they carefully shaved away the matted fur. The chain had created a deep, infected collar of wounds around his neck. His back and sides bore numerous cuts and sores, likely from lying on hard ground and metal scraps. Most disturbing were the marks that suggested he'd been beaten. "The good news," Dr. Santos reported after the initial assessment, "is that despite everything, his vital organs appear to be functioning. He's severely malnourished and dehydrated, but his heart is strong. The bad news is that we're looking at extensive wound treatment and potential surgical intervention for some of the deeper injuries." Rachel nodded, her hand still resting on Duke's head. "Whatever he needs, we'll find a way to cover it." The first night proved critical. Duke's fever spiked dangerously high around midnight, prompting Dr. Santos to stay well past her shift. Rachel remained too, reading softly to Duke from a dog-eared copy of James Ario's dog stories she kept in her rescue kit. "You know," she told him during one of his more lucid moments, "I've been doing this work for 15 years, and I've never met a dog quite like you. You're teaching us all something about grace." Duke's response was to weakly nuzzle her hand, his eyes carrying a wisdom that seemed almost human. By morning, the fever had broken, but the real work was just beginning. Wound treatment was painful and extensive, requiring sedation for the deeper cleanings. The staff quickly learned that classical music helped keep Duke calm during procedures, with Bach being his particular favorite. "Look at this," Maria pointed out during one treatment session. Despite the pain he must have been feeling, Duke was attempting to comfort a nervous veterinary student by placing his paw on her arm. "He's going to make an amazing therapy dog someday," Sarah predicted, carefully applying antibiotic ointment to his healing neck wounds. Days turned into weeks. Duke's progress, while steady, revealed new challenges. He developed trust issues around food, clearly expecting it to be taken away. The sound of chains or raised voices would make him tremble. Yet his gentle nature never wavered. Rachel visited daily, often bringing special treats approved by Dr. Santos. She began documenting Duke's recovery on social media, and soon Duke's journey had gathered a following of thousands. People from around the world sent messages of support, donations, and even hand-knitted blankets. "You're becoming quite the celebrity," Rachel told him one evening, showing him a package that had arrived from Japan. A handmade collar in soft blue fabric, embroidered with symbols for strength and healing. 1 month into his recovery, Duke achieved a milestone that had the entire clinic staff in tears. He played with a toy for the first time. It was a simple squeaky polar bear, donated by a local child. But Duke's joy in discovering he was allowed to play was profound. "That's it, sweet boy," Rachel encouraged as Duke tentatively mouthed the toy. "It's yours. All yours." The transformation continued. His wounds began to heal, leaving scars that would fade but never completely disappear. Fresh, clean fur started growing in, revealing the true magnificence of his Samoyed heritage. But perhaps most remarkable was his emerging personality, playful, intelligent, and unfailingly kind. As autumn painted the Pennsylvania countryside in brilliant colors, Duke's physical recovery progressed steadily. However, the emotional healing proved to be a more complex journey. Rachel and the clinic staff began noticing patterns in his behavior that revealed the depth of his past trauma. Thunder would send him seeking shelter under furniture. The sound of beer cans being crushed for recycling outside the clinic would make him tremble. Most notably, he struggled with being alone, especially at night. "It's like he's afraid we won't come back," Dr. Santos observed one evening, watching Duke anxiously track Rachel's movements as she prepared to leave. Rachel made a decision that would change both their lives. With Dr. Santos's approval, she began spending nights at the clinic, sleeping on a cot next to Duke's kennel. Each night, she would read to him until he fell asleep, his breathing steady and calm. During one of these nights, something remarkable happened. A severe thunderstorm hit the area, causing a power outage at the clinic. As the backup generator hummed to life, Rachel heard whimpering from Duke's kennel. But this time, instead of cowering, he was pawing at the gate, trying to reach her. "What is it, boy?" she asked, opening the kennel door. To her surprise, Duke gently tugged at her sleeve, leading her to the adjacent kennel where a recently rescued kitten was trembling in fear. He lay down beside the kitten's cage, offering comfort to the frightened creature. "You're not just healing," Rachel realized, watching in amazement. "You're helping others heal too." This incident marked a turning point in Duke's recovery. The staff began carefully introducing him to other animals at the clinic, and his natural talent for calming anxious pets became evident. Even the most stressed animals seemed to relax in his presence. Word of Duke's special gift spread through the local rescue community. Soon, other organizations began requesting his help with particularly traumatized animals. Under careful supervision, Duke would sit calmly with nervous dogs, showing them through his own example that humans could be trusted. "It's like he's telling them, if I can learn to trust again, so can you," Marcus observed during one such session. As Duke's confidence grew, Rachel began taking him on short trips outside the clinic. Their first visit to a local park became a lesson in both triumph and challenge. While Duke showed enthusiasm for exploring new smells and meeting people, he became anxious when a jogger carrying a metal water bottle passed too close. "It's okay, sweet boy," Rachel soothed, noticing how the metallic clanking had triggered his fear. "You're safe now." These outings revealed another aspect of Duke's remarkable character, his intuitive understanding of human emotions. During one memorable walk, he suddenly pulled Rachel toward a bench where an elderly man sat alone, quietly crying. Without hesitation, Duke gently rested his head on the man's knee. The man, startled out of his grief, looked down into Duke's compassionate eyes and began to smile through his tears. "My wife used to have a dog just like him," the man shared, stroking Duke's fur. "I lost her last month. First time I've smiled since then." These encounters convinced Rachel that Duke's purpose extended far beyond his own recovery. He wasn't just a survivor, he was a healer. As winter approached, discussions began about Duke's future. While he had become the beloved mascot of the clinic, everyone agreed he deserved a permanent home. But finding the right match for a dog with his history and special needs wouldn't be easy. "He needs someone who understands trauma," Dr. Santos advised. "Someone patient enough to work through his fears, but also someone who will appreciate his gift for helping others." Rachel found herself torn. She had grown deeply attached to Duke, but her work as a rescue coordinator meant long, unpredictable hours. Not ideal for a dog who needed stability and routine. The answer came from an unexpected source. During one of Duke's therapy sessions with other rescued animals, they met Claire Henderson, a retired trauma counselor who volunteered at the clinic. Her daughter Emma, a quiet teenager struggling with anxiety, had been accompanying her mother to the clinic. The connection between Emma and Duke was immediate and profound. While Emma typically struggled with social interactions, she seemed to bloom in Duke's presence. And Duke, in turn, showed a special gentleness with her that touched everyone who witnessed it. "Watch how they mirror each other," Claire noted, observing how Duke would match his movements to Emma's energy level. "They understand each other without words." The Henderson family lived in a cozy farmhouse on 5 acres of land, just outside of town. When Claire first approached Rachel about possibly adopting Duke, she came prepared with a detailed plan that showed she understood both the challenges and responsibilities ahead. "We've converted the sunroom into a quiet space for Duke," Claire explained, showing photos on her phone. "It has heated floors, plenty of natural light, and a direct view of the garden. Emma's already picked out a special reading chair where they can spend time together." Tom Henderson, Claire's husband and a veterinary technician, had already begun making modifications to their home to accommodate Duke's specific needs. They installed special nightlights to prevent complete darkness, created multiple cozy retreat spaces, and even set up a therapeutic water feature in the garden whose gentle sounds could help mask triggering noises. Rachel arranged a series of supervised visits to help Duke transition gradually. Each visit revealed more about why the Hendersons might be the perfect match. Emma, it turned out, had a natural intuition for Duke's emotional states. "He's not scared right now," she explained during one visit, as Duke explored the garden. "See how his tail is relaxed and his ears are forward? But he keeps checking back with us because he wants to make sure we're still here." The breakthrough moment came during their 4th visit. A delivery truck backfired in the distance, causing Duke to startle. Before anyone could react, Emma quietly sat on the ground and began reciting a calming verse she used for her own anxiety. "Breathe in peace, breathe out fear. Know that you are safe right here." To everyone's amazement, Duke padded over and settled beside her, matching his breathing to her calm, steady rhythm. "They heal each other," Claire whispered to Rachel, watching the pair. The decision to make the adoption official wasn't easy for Rachel. Duke had become more than just another rescue case. He represented everything she believed about the power of compassion and second chances. But seeing him with the Hendersons, particularly with Emma, made it clear this was his destined home. The adoption day was celebrated with a small gathering at the clinic. Dr. Santos, who had overseen Duke's physical recovery, gave him a final checkup and declared him ready for his new life. The staff had prepared a special graduation ceremony, complete with a bandana that read, "From survivor to thriver." "Remember," Rachel told the Hendersons, fighting back tears. "He still needs Bach during thunderstorms, and his polar bear toy helps him sleep, and sometimes he gets worried about food running out, so dash." "We know," Emma said softly, her hand steady on Duke's head. "We'll take care of him. He takes care of us too." That evening, as Rachel helped settle Duke into his new home, she watched Emma lead him to the sunroom. The space was beautiful, filled with soft cushions, calming colors, and windows that looked out over flowering gardens. On a small table sat Duke's beloved polar bear toy, along with a fresh copy of James Ario's dog stories. "Would you like to read with us?" Emma asked Rachel. "One last time?" As they settled into the reading nook, Duke positioned himself between them, his head resting contentedly on Emma's lap while his tail gently tapped against Rachel's leg. The setting sun cast warm light across the room, creating a peaceful tableau of new beginnings. Emma opened the book and began to read, her voice clear and confident, so different from the shy girl they'd first met. Duke's eyes drifted closed, but his tail kept its gentle rhythm, as if keeping time with the words. Rachel stayed until Duke fell asleep, his breathing deep and peaceful. As she prepared to leave, she saw something that assured her she'd made the right decision. Duke didn't anxiously track her movements toward the door. Instead, he remained peacefully curled beside Emma, secure in the knowledge that he was finally, truly home. The first year in Duke's new life brought transformations no one could have anticipated. Under the Hendersons' patient care, he blossomed from a trauma survivor into a beacon of hope for others. It began when Emma, inspired by Duke's journey, started a blog called Lessons from Duke. What started as simple daily observations about their life together soon caught the attention of animal welfare organizations and mental health professionals alike. "Today Duke taught me about boundaries," she wrote in one popular post. When the neighbor's dog got too energetic, Duke didn't growl or run away. He simply sat down and turned his head until the other dog matched his calm energy. Sometimes the strongest response is the quietest one. Claire, noticing how Duke's presence affected not just Emma but everyone who met him, approached the local hospital about their therapy dog program. After extensive evaluation and certification training, Duke became their most requested therapy dog. "There's something special about him," said Sarah Chun, the pediatric ward nurse. "The children sense that he understands pain, that he's been through hard times too. Creates an immediate bond." One particular incident cemented Duke's reputation as an extraordinary therapy dog. During a routine visit to the children's ward, he suddenly became insistent about entering a room they usually skipped, one housing a 10-year-old boy who had been unresponsive since a traumatic accident 3 weeks earlier. "He's never responded to any therapy," the boy's mother explained, but allowed Duke to approach. What happened next moved everyone to tears. Duke gently rested his head on the boy's bed, and after a few moments, the child's hand moved slightly to touch Duke's fur. It was the first voluntary movement he'd made since the accident. Back at home, Duke and Emma's bond continued to deepen. They developed their own daily routine: morning walks in the garden, reading sessions in the sunroom, and what Emma called their quiet time. Moments when they would simply sit together, finding peace in each other's presence. Emma's own anxiety had improved dramatically. Her teachers noticed she was more engaged in class, and she even joined the school's animal welfare club, eventually becoming its president. "Duke showed me that helping others is the best way to heal yourself," she explained during a school presentation about animal rescue. The Hendersons' home became known as a safe haven for other traumatized animals. With Duke as their guide, they successfully fostered several abused dogs, helping them overcome their fears and find new homes. Tom noticed that Duke had an uncanny ability to assess other dogs' emotional states. "He knows exactly how to approach each one," he observed. "With scared dogs, he makes himself smaller, moves slower. With anxious ones, he demonstrates calm behavior they can mirror." Claire documented Duke's methods, collaborating with animal behaviorists to develop new approaches for rehabilitating traumatized animals. The resulting manual, the Duke Method, was adopted by several rescue organizations. Rachel remained a frequent visitor, marveling at Duke's evolution. The scared dog who once trembled at the sound of chains now confidently helped other animals overcome similar fears. His scars had faded to silver traces beneath his thick white fur, visible only as reminders of his journey. "He never forgot," Rachel noted during one visit, watching Duke gently guide a newly rescued dog through their first walk in the garden. But he learned to translate his pain into purpose. As Duke's 3rd year with the Hendersons approached, his influence had spread far beyond their small Pennsylvania town. The Lessons from Duke blog had grown into a movement, inspiring rescue organizations worldwide to rethink their approaches to traumatized animals. Emma, now entering her senior year of high school, had found her calling. Her experiences with Duke had shaped her college plans. She aimed to study veterinary behavioral medicine, hoping to combine animal care with psychological healing. "Duke taught me that healing isn't just about treating physical wounds," she explained in her college application essay. "It's about restoring faith in goodness, one gentle interaction at a time." The most remarkable aspect of Duke's story was how it continued to touch new lives in unexpected ways. One autumn morning, Claire received a call from the local police department. They had raided a puppy mill and discovered several severely traumatized Samoyeds among the rescued dogs. "We've read about Duke," the officer said. "We were hoping he might be able to help." The Hendersons converted their garage into a temporary rehabilitation space, and Duke took on his most challenging role yet, helping his own breed overcome trauma similar to what he had experienced. His approach was nothing short of miraculous. "Watch this," Tom would tell visiting veterinarians, as Duke demonstrated his method. With each traumatized dog, he would first establish a safe distance, then gradually model normal, healthy behaviors, eating calmly from a bowl, playing with toys, accepting gentle touches. The other dogs would observe and, slowly but surely, begin to mimic his actions. One Samoyed in particular, a female they named Hope, seemed to form a special bond with Duke. Like him, she had survived severe neglect, but unlike Duke, she had completely shut down, refusing to engage with humans or other dogs. Duke's patience with Hope became legendary among local rescue workers. He would sit near her for hours, not demanding interaction, just offering quiet companionship. After 2 weeks, Hope finally responded by moving closer to him. By the 3rd week, she was sharing his water bowl. A month later, she allowed Emma to touch her for the first time. "He remembers," Claire observed, watching Duke guide Hope through her first tentative steps into the garden. "He remembers exactly what it feels like to be where she is, and he knows exactly what she needs." The success with Hope led to the establishment of the Duke Sanctuary, a specialized rehabilitation center for traumatized animals. The Hendersons purchased additional land adjacent to their property, and with the help of donations from Duke's worldwide supporters, built a state-of-the-art facility. Rachel, who had since become the sanctuary's director of operations, often reflected on that first desperate rescue. Duke's daily routine now included regular sessions with new arrivals at the sanctuary, but he never neglected his other duties. He still visited the children's hospital twice a week, participated in Emma's research projects on animal-assisted therapy, and maintained his special role as the Henderson family's heart and soul. Each evening, without fail, he and Emma would return to their special spot in the sunroom. Though she was no longer the anxious teenager who had first bonded with a wounded dog, their reading sessions remained sacred ritual. Duke would rest his head on her lap, his eyes bright with intelligence and compassion, as she read aloud from their ever-growing collection of books. "You know what amazes me most about Duke?" Emma asked her mother one evening, watching him sleep peacefully after a long day at the sanctuary. "He could have let his trauma make him bitter or aggressive. Instead, he chose to become a healer." Claire smiled, remembering all the lives Duke had touched. "Perhaps that's his greatest lesson," she replied, "that our hardest experiences, when transformed by love, can become our greatest gifts to others." As if hearing his name in their conversation, Duke lifted his head and offered one of his signature gentle smiles, the kind that had melted countless hearts and helped heal numerous souls. His journey from a chained, wounded creature to a beacon of hope and healing stood as testament to the extraordinary power of compassion, second chances, and the unfathomable depths of the canine spirit. 10 years after Duke's rescue, on a bright spring morning, the Duke Sanctuary celebrated its 1,000th successful rehabilitation. The occasion brought together people and animals from all walks of life, former patients, medical professionals, rescue workers, and supporters from around the world. Duke, his muzzle now graced with distinguished silver, sat regally beside Emma as she addressed the gathering. Though older, his eyes still held that same gentle wisdom that had touched so many lives. Duke's story didn't end with his rescue. Emma, now a practicing veterinary behaviorist, told the assembled crowd, "It was just the beginning. Every animal that finds healing here, every person who discovers hope in their darkest moments, they're all part of Duke's legacy." The sanctuary had grown beyond anyone's initial vision. Its methods were now taught in veterinary schools across the country. The Duke Protocol for rehabilitating traumatized animals had been translated into 12 languages. Even more remarkably, human trauma therapists had begun adapting Duke's gentle, patient approach for their own practice. Hope, the Samoyed who had once been among Duke's most challenging cases, now worked alongside him as a therapy dog. Together, they had pioneered what became known as the companion healing method, where recovered dogs helped in the rehabilitation of new arrivals. Rachel, her hair now streaked with gray, often found herself sharing Duke's story with new rescue workers. "The true miracle," she would tell them, "isn't just that Duke survived. It's that he showed us how to turn survival into purpose." That evening, after the celebrations had ended, the Hendersons gathered in the sunroom, their family's heart for the past decade. Duke lay in his favorite spot, surrounded by the people who had become his family. Emma sat beside him, holding a worn copy of James Herriot's Dog Stories, the same book Rachel had read to him during those first difficult nights at the clinic. "Should we read your favorite chapter, Duke?" Emma asked softly. Duke's tail thumped gently against the floor, still his way of saying yes after all these years. As Emma began to read, Claire looked around the room at the family Duke had brought together. Outside, through the windows, she could see the sanctuary where hundreds of animals had found their second chance. In the distance, the sun was setting, painting the sky in colors of hope. Duke had shown them all that healing was not just about recovering from past wounds. It was about creating a future where those wounds became bridges to understanding, compassion, and connection. His journey from a chained, abused dog to a healer of broken spirits had inspired a movement of kindness that continued to ripple outward, touching lives in ways that would never be fully known. As the last light of day filled the room with a golden glow, Duke dozed peacefully, surrounded by love. Not just the love of his family, but the encompassing love of a legacy that would continue to heal hearts, both human and animal, for generations to come. In the end, Duke's story wasn't just about one dog's remarkable journey from darkness to light. It was about the extraordinary capacity of the heart to transform pain into purpose, fear into courage, and suffering into service. It was a testament to the truth that even the deepest wounds, when healed by love, can become wellsprings of hope for others. And in that quiet moment, as evening settled over the sanctuary that bore his name, Duke's gentle spirit continued to teach its most important lesson, that the greatest healing of all comes not from what we receive, but from what we give to others.